Welcome to Thoughts of War. My name is Bart, a non-violent follower of Jesus. I've recently watched the debate between David Wood and Daniel. Sorry, not gonna be able to pronounce your last name, but he's a Muslim YouTuber, and David Wood is a Christian YouTuber, and they have this debate. And the debate happens to be on violence and tolerance in Christianity and Islam. And I want to give you a non-violent Christian perspective on this. David Wood takes the case of what I would think most Christians would present, in that Christians influence society, and that's why you have things like the just war theory that limits war. But God did not intend the teachings of Jesus to give you every rule and how to govern a society, where Islam does. But what I want to give my perspective is from a non-violent follower of Jesus. We see things slightly different than just the general church, how they go back to Augustine. And so during this video, I noticed Daniel kept asking for the early, you got to use early references. The references have to go back to the original. And David did say he was using the Bible. But then after that, often David would jump to Augustine. And David may know about all these other things. I'm sure he does. He's a pretty smart man. He knows about a lot of these early Christian writers. But from a non-violent Christian, these early Christian writers are pretty important. And so I want to make sure I bring those to the table. So if you have not checked out my YouTube video, Thoughts of War, please go to it. And I've got video after video after video on early church fathers and their teachings of nonviolence. And if Daniel wants early references for what the church truly taught, he will find those. I cover Justin Martyr, I cover Irenaeus, I cover Tertullian, Origen, Lactantius. I even cover Augustine himself. I just posted a video on Augustine that clearly shows how he saw how the age of the apostles, Christians were to live one way, but once there was a Christian emperor, Christianity changed to now it was to function a different way. And so for sure, the early church, the early Christians taught and lived very differently than after the time of Constantine, and between the late 4th and early 5th century, there was a lot of changes to Christianity. And so my basic premise is this, is that the early church does not teach that Christians are to kill. In the military, as like a police officer, I would say even in self-defense. Why? Because they're pointing people to Jesus and to a better life that was coming afterwards. And you say, well, how can Christians even exist then? Wouldn't they just be all killed? Well, that's the thing about it. God still protects his message. Even when the people were being killed, God kept sending prophets. And those prophets were killed, God would keep sending more. So it's the same with Christians. As Christians were killed, people would then accept Christianity, and more were killed, and then more people would accept Christianity. So Christianity did not have to be in government control or in control of the government to grow in the first few centuries. And so Christianity does not need to be in the control of a government now. That's not the purpose of the teachings of Jesus. So it should not be expected for Christians to control a government. So that's one of those things that makes it different from Islam. And you may say, well, what happened in the past? Why do you have these Christian governments of the past? Well, I would just make the claim, not everybody who claims to follow Jesus actually followed the teachings of Jesus. I think you could say this true about Islam as well. Not everybody who claims to be a Muslim actually follows the teachings of Muhammad. And so I would say, yes, there are Christians who formed governments, who enacted laws and maybe did expansion wars and killed, other Christian groups that were not like them. But I would say that those were not following the teachings of Jesus. The early references, Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, Tertullian, Origen, they all confirm that the original Isaiah 2, Micah 4 prophecy about how there's going to be teaching coming from Jerusalem, and the people will beat their swords into plowshares, how that was something how the Christians were to live, that they were no longer to kill, no longer to go to war. So another question that Daniel brings up is the concept of Christian governance. And just to make it clear again that As a nonviolent follower of Jesus, I do not believe that Jesus taught that Christians should be in that government position where they're deciding to kill people based on the choices that they make. And I get that from the early teachings. And so if you go back and look at Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, Tertullian, and Origen, and I'm not the only Christian saying this. If you go look, there are a group of Christian churches. They're often called peace churches. But you can look at the Anabaptists, the Mennonites, the Amish, and just different groups throughout the years. There's lots of Christians who have actually held to this belief. I wonder if in Islamic countries, if there was not this incentive to become a Muslim, if there was socially, what I mean, and if there wasn't this fear of the government that if you leave Islam, it could be punished in some way, whether it be death or life in prison or whatever the case may be. If those constraints were not put on by the government, would people still choose Islam? The purpose of Christianity and the teachings of Jesus are that people freely choose to follow him. There's not a government overseer that is pushing people to follow Jesus. Jesus doesn't want people, God doesn't want people who are coerced or pushed into heaven because of the government. God wants people to freely choose to count the cost. Are they willing to do this? God is seeking a volunteer army, not an army that was drafted. Well, anyway, that's my take on nonviolence and the debate between David Wood and Daniel. I'm glad you guys did the debate. Don't know how in the world y'all did a 4-hour debate, but briefly, those are my points. Daniel, check out those early references that I gave to early Christian writings. And David, keep making videos. I enjoy watching them. And Daniel, I'll watch some of yours too. So we'll see you guys. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you.